Claire clinked her glass and praised her mother, then told her to clean up after everyone. Linda smiled politely, but her chest burned. 62 years of sacrifice, and she was still the help. She didn't slam doors. Instead, she pocketed Claire's phone and walked out the back gate. By morning, she would no longer be invisible. She wasn't just a mother anymore. She was a woman reclaiming her voice, one boundary at a time. I'm curious, where in the world are you joining us from? Drop your city or country in the comments and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates. Everything should have been perfect until my daughter Claire told me to clean up after everyone. I was beyond stunned. The backyard was strung with fairy lights. Laughter rippled through the evening air, and plates clinked in rhythmic chaos. Linda stood near the patio, her hands loosely clasped, watching the family she had spent decades building unfold in front of her. Children sprawled on lawn chairs, grandkids darting around the garden, and Claire, her eldest, directing traffic like she owned the stage. The dinner had gone smoothly. Linda had helped Claire prep the casseroles earlier, laid out the extra folding chairs, even fixed the sagging banner that read, "Family is forever." She'd arrived 2 hours before the others. That was always the deal. Linda handled the details, and Claire took the credit. But tonight was different. After dessert had been passed around, the conversations turned lazy and full-bellied. Claire tapped her glass, standing at the head of the table, smiling wide with hostess energy. "Well, I think we all owe a round of applause to Mom for helping pull this off," Claire announced, gesturing toward Linda with the flair of a game show host. Linda managed a smile, though something in her chest. Then, Claire added too casually, "And Mom, if you could just get the dishes started, that'd be amazing. Everyone else is stuffed." A few chuckles, some murmured thanks. One of the grandkids asked for more lemonade. Linda froze, plate in hand, her smile faltering only for a second. But it was enough to notice how her daughter's words, layered in false flattery, had reduced her to a maid in her own family's eyes. She looked around. No one batted an eye, not her son-in-law, not even her younger daughter, Rachel, who offered a shrug and returned to her wine. Linda turned toward the sink, as if on autopilot, but halfway there, she stopped. Her hand hovered over a crusted pie plate, trembling. Her ears buzzed with the silence between all the noise, the kind of silence that spoke louder than applause. She could hear every instance in her life echoing: late nights sewing Halloween costumes, early mornings carpooling to swim meets, working double shifts while nursing her husband through chemo, all of it done quietly, gratefully, invisibly. And here she was, 62, reduced to dish duty while her daughter basked in admiration. Her jaw clenched. She didn't say a word, didn't cause a scene, not yet. Instead, she walked out of the kitchen and down the steps toward the back gate, past the folding chairs and citronella candles, past the laughter and the unspoken assumptions. No one stopped her, they never did. The night air was cool against her flushed skin. She stood under the dim porch light, arms folded, her pulse thudded in her ears, not from rage exactly, but something deeper, recognition, that she had been complicit in this dynamic for far too long, that her silence had built the very pedestal her daughter now stood on. Inside, Claire's voice rose again, something about organizing family photos next weekend. Linda stared at the stars. Her breath came slower now, more deliberate. She didn't want revenge. She wanted respect, and for the first time in decades, she realized no one was going to hand it to her. She'd have to take it. Her hand moved to the gate latch, not to leave but to step back in with a decision forming behind her eyes, the kind that doesn't shout, the kind that changes everything. I had a choice: stay silent or speak up. For once I decided to act. The night air settled around Linda like a blanket she no longer wanted to wear. Her fingers brushed the gate latch, then withdrew. She wasn't ready to leave, not yet, not until she did something for herself, something different, something unsilent. She stepped quietly back onto the porch, her sandals soft against the wood. From inside, laughter rose and fell in waves. Claire's voice the loudest, commanding, carefree, the kind of voice that didn't know what it meant to kneel at someone's bedside while they fade, the kind of voice that never noticed how tired Linda had looked lately. Through the open kitchen window, Linda saw Claire refilling her wine, gesturing to someone off camera. The plate pile still sat in the sink, congealing. No one had moved. No one offered to help. Linda's chest tightened with the slow burn of realization, and then, she saw it. Claire's phone, sitting on the kitchen counter, carelessly tossed next to the napkin holder. Linda stood motionless for a beat. That phone, always buzzing, always glowing in Claire's hand like a third limb. Linda had watched her swipe away dinner conversations, redirect arguments with a scroll, even silence Rachel's tears once with a hang on. I'm texting. That device was Claire's scepter, her mirror, her control, and suddenly, Linda knew, not everything had to be loud. Some messages could be sent quietly. She stepped into the kitchen, her movements fluid, almost graceful. The laughter from the backyard continued, muffled through the sliding glass doors. No one noticed her. She walked to the counter, reached for the phone, and lifted it off the surface. It was heavier than she expected. The screen lit up, messages from Claire's husband, a group chat with cousins, an event reminder for Claire's spring brunch, all of it evidence of the world that rotated around Claire. Linda turned the phone over once, twice, then she slipped it into the pocket of her cardigan and walked toward the hallway. Her heart pounded. She hadn't done something like this. Not ever. She reached the guest room where her purse rested on the dresser and opened the bottom drawer of the wardrobe. Inside was an old jewelry box she used for sewing notions, zippers, faded thread, a pair of small shears. She placed the phone inside, nestled between old spools, and shut the box. The lid clicked shut with finality. She paused. A rush of heat rose through her fear. Thrill, Claire. It wasn't about theft. It wasn't even about punishment. It was a message, a ripple in the routine, a private act that said, I see you, and I won't be invisible anymore. Back in the kitchen, she wiped her hands with a dish towel and poured herself a glass of lemonade. The door slid open. Mom, did you ever? Claire began, stopping mid-sentence. Wait, did you see my phone? Linda turned, the picture of calm. No, she said gently. Was it on the table? Claire frowned. I thought I left it right. She scanned the counter, peered under a folded napkin, opened a cabinet for some reason that made no sense. Her brow knit with mild frustration. Linda sipped her drink. Claire turned toward the patio. Has anyone seen my phone? She called out, voice rising in urgency from the backyard. Did you check your purse? Didn't you just have it? Use Find My? Oh, wait. Linda moved toward the sink slowly, deliberately, and placed her glass down. Her heart was thudding like a drum beneath a velvet blanket. Quiet but present. Claire brushed past her again, muttering now, her hands patting her pockets, and Linda stood still in the center of it all, unmoved, unnoticed, undeniable. Claire's voice rose in frustration, echoing through the hallway as she searched every drawer, and she simply dried her hands and waited, the smallest smile tugging at her lips. The silence had finally started speaking for her. Claire's frustration grew, but I could feel the power shifting. She was starting to lose control. The mood had shifted. It was subtle at first, like when the wind changes just before a storm. Claire's voice, once smooth and commanding, had taken on a strained edge. I swear I left it right here, she muttered, rifling through the countertop drawer with unnecessary force. Silverware clattered. A spatula clanged to the floor. From the patio, Rachel tilted her head. What's going on? My phone's gone. Claire snapped, spinning toward her. Did one of the kids take it? Maybe as a joke? The grandkids, gathered in a circle over popsicles and half-finished brownies, glanced up in unison. One of them shrugged. I didn't touch it. The others returned to their games, uninterested, but the adults had taken notice now. Conversations stalled. Glasses low. Claire's husband stepped in from outside, his brow furrowed. Maybe it slid under something, he offered, trying to soothe. It didn't. Claire barked. I don't lose things. Someone moved it. Linda watched from the edge of the room. Her arms were folded, her lemonade half full beside her on the sink. She said nothing. Claire opened the pantry, looked on the shelves, then the fridge. Nothing. Why would anyone move my phone? She said to no one, and everyone. It was right here. I was texting just before dessert. A beat of awkward silence stretched across the kitchen like a taut string. Rachel sipped her wine too quickly. One of the cousins chuckled nervously. Maybe you took it with you and forgot. No, Claire said flatly. I wouldn't do that. Linda met her daughter's eyes briefly, then looked away as if the conversation didn't concern her. She reached for a napkin and wiped an invisible crumb from the counter. Inside, though, a quiet satisfaction bloomed. The room, this moment, was tilted. For years, Claire had orchestrated every gathering, Every sentence, every narrative, Linda had followed quietly, dutifully, until now. Now, Claire's edges were fraying. She's always on that thing. Someone whispered. Maybe she left it outside. No, she said she just had it. Claire's tone turned accusatory. Did one of you move it as a joke? Seriously, I need that phone. No one answered. The tension ticked like a clock. Linda stepped out of the kitchen and into the hallway, passing the coat rack slowly. She let her hand graze the wall, her fingers brushing the old family portrait Claire had insisted on reframing last Christmas. Everyone smiling, everyone pretending. She stood there in the stillness, listening as Claire tore through the house. Cabinet doors slammed. A drawer rattled open. Voices lowered. Linda could feel the weight of her silence growing. It wasn't the phone she'd taken, not really. It was Claire's certainty, her stage. Linda had stepped off the sidelines, and the imbalance was finally visible. She returned to the kitchen, as Claire pulled open the freezer with a muttered, "This is insane," and then froze. There it was. The phone, lying awkwardly beside a half-eaten tub of butter pecan ice cream, and a box of frozen spinach. The room went silent. Claire reached for it, slowly, like it might vanish if she moved too fast. She looked around, blinking. Then she turned, locking eyes with her mother. Linda stood still. Her face was unreadable, calm, polite, maybe even serene. No smile, no flinch, just present. "Mom," Claire said, her voice flat with something between accusation and disbelief. "Did you?" Linda didn't answer. She just tilted her head slightly, letting the question hang between them like smoke. Claire stood clutching the frozen phone, her breath quickening, and the whole family watched, waiting to see what came next. Her face twisted with frustration. This was no longer just about the phone. It was about losing control. Claire gripped the frozen phone like it was burning her hand instead of numbing it. She turned from the freezer with a sharp pivot, and locked eyes with Linda. Her mouth tightened. Her heels clicked with precision across the tile floor until they were face to face. "What did you do?" Claire hissed, low enough to mask it as composure, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Are you seriously trying to humiliate me in front of everyone?" Linda stood straight, shoulders square. "You left it unattended," she said evenly. "I didn't think you'd miss it for a while." Claire blinked hard. "What does that even mean?" Her voice cracked at the edge. "You went into my things. Are you losing it?" A hush fell over the room. Plates stopped clinking. The grandkids froze mid-game. Claire's husband, Tom, stood near the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, lips pressed tight. Rachel stood behind the island, staring into her untouched glass of wine. Linda didn't move. "No, Claire," she said. "I'm not losing anything. I've just finally found the line I should have drawn years ago." Claire scoffed, loud, exaggerated. "What are you talking about? I'm tired of being the one who shows up early to prep your party, who cleans up your dishes while you take bows, who gets clapped for and then handed a sponge." Linda's voice stayed even, but the tremor beneath it was a lifetime deep. "You treat me like help, Claire, not like a mother. That's ridiculous." Claire snapped. "You offered to help like always. You never said anything before." Linda smiled, but there was no warmth. "And that's the point. I never said anything, but I should have." Claire's jaw opened, closed. She looked at the phone again like it might offer her an out. "You embarrassed me. You embarrassed yourself," Linda said, then louder enough for the rest of the family to hear. "And I think tonight you can clean up for once." The silence was not just awkward now, it was electric. Claire looked around, waiting for anyone to jump in, to rescue her from the unraveling. No one did. Even the kids had gone still, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Linda's sister, Emily, stepped forward, arms folded. She met Linda's eyes, and gave the smallest nod, recognition. Claire's voice sharpened, desperate. "You're acting like this is some big injustice, like I've mistreated you." "You have," Linda said. "You just never noticed. And I let you." Tom cleared his throat. "She's right." All eyes turned to him. Claire whipped around. "Excuse me, you've been hard on her," Tom said carefully, but his voice was firm. "I've seen it, the way you assign her tasks like a helper, how you never ask if she wants to, only assume she will, and when she doesn't jump to it, you pout." Claire stared, eyes wide. "Are you seriously siding with her right now?" "I'm not siding," Tom said. "I'm just saying, maybe it's time to listen." Linda didn't gloat. She didn't smile. Her expression held the weight of someone who hadn't expected the wind to turn in her favor. but had braced for the storm anyway. Claire's breathing grew louder. She looked at each person in the room. Rachel, who now stared down into her lap. Emily, arms still folded. Tom, quiet but steady. Unbelievable, Claire muttered, then louder. You all think I'm the villain now? Linda didn't answer. Claire turned, storming down the hall. The sound of her steps echoed through the house. A door slammed. The silence that followed wasn't it was messy, raw with discomfort, ripe with overdue tension. Linda stood there, steady, but something inside her began to tremble, not with regret, but with realization. She had said it, she had claimed the moment, but now came the fallout. Linda picked up her glass, her fingers slightly shaking. As she took a slow sip, her eyes remained on the hallway. Claire was gone, but the echo of their confrontation lingered in every corner, and now Linda wondered, what would rise from the silence left behind? After the confrontation, I knew things could never go back to how they were, but for once, I felt free. Once Claire stormed into the hallway, the air shifted. The humming laughter and casual chatter that had filled the reunion faded into quiet murmur. Cups lay half empty, plates remained unstacked. The family sensed that something fundamental had changed. Linda lingered near the sink, where the frozen phone lay. She set her glass down gently, feeling its cool weight in her palm. Her chest felt light. It was the exhilaration of having spoken. The fear of consequence was still there, but more distant now. Emily crossed to her quietly. I'm proud of you, she whispered, arms folded, but eyes warm. Linda nodded, blinking back sudden moisture she refused to regret. Downstairs, Claire shut herself in her room. The muffled sounds of sobbing leaked through the door, but no one knocked. The household respect line had faded too. Claire had chosen to isolate herself. Family members drifted. Rachel appeared beside Emily with a gentle touch. That had to happen, she said soft. Too long you've been background. Linda hugged her younger daughter once, then stepped away. I choose something different now, she said. At the dining table, Tom lingered. He tapped emptily at dinner conversation, until Mark, Linda's son, gently cleared his throat. Mark hadn't spoken during the confrontation, but now he leaned forward. Mom, he began, I just wanted to say, I see you, I always have. Linda's throat tightened. He reached out and squeezed her hand briefly, before excusing himself. Outside, the children resumed playing, but the laughter was quieter now, cautious. The regained lightness that had danced through the evening was now tempered with vigilance. Emily led Linda to the porch steps for fresh air. Brave gusts of wind rustled the fairy lights above. This is the beginning, Emily said. It's messy, but it's your start. I know, Linda said, inhaling the night air. Tonight I chose me, but I also fear what I might have lost. Emily placed a hand on her mother's back. Sometimes what you lose is what you never had. Inside, Rachel whispered, a tentative question. Mom, do you want to stay? Linda turned and saw chairs shuffled awkwardly. Her thoughts drifted to memory, her lifelong habit of retreating to the guest room after everyone left, cleaning up missing everyone's thanks. She shook her head. I'll stay, she said quietly, but not to manage. I'll stay as me. The rest of the evening passed quietly. Claire remained absent from the living room, her plate untouched, storybook by the sofa Linda watched as others valiantly tried to resume normal flow. Conversation, awkward, laughter forced. But what struck her most was not what others lacked, but what she'd gained. Presence. She was no longer background noise. She had weight. She had voice. Mark returned briefly to embrace her before gathering the kids. Thank you, he whispered. Linda let the words settle. At the door, Rachel paused. Mom, I love you. Linda looked into her daughter's eyes. For once they weren't windows. She mirrored the sentiment. I love you too. Later, when the guests were sparse, just Emily, Mark, Rachel and Linda, someone started clearing dishes. Others stowed leftovers. No one asked Linda. She followed them into the kitchen. Clean touch. Emily shot her a glance. You don't have to. Linda shook her head and picked up a plate anyway, then set it back down. After tonight I know what choosing me looks like. She walked back to the porch and watched the lights flicker under summer air. Mark lingered at the door. He looked at Claire's abandoned plate and then turned to her. Mom, he said, whenever you want to talk, I'm here. I know, she said softly. Emily came out to join them. They stood together in silence, choices made, lines drawn, but connections still possible. Then Linda's phone buzzed in her purse. She retrieved it and read a text. Claire, can we meet later? Just you and me. Please. Linda's breath paused. She glanced into the still night. The road between them had changed. How wide it remained was still uncertain. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and let the message linger. The air felt different now. Not full of expectations. Not silence either. But possibility. And Linda knew. This time, she would decide how far she'd go. I never expected it. But Sophie reached out with an apology. Could things really change? Linda was curled into her armchair when her phone buzzed, interrupting the hush of early morning sunlight. The message preview sent a tightening through her chest. Sophie, Mom, can we talk? I'm so sorry. Her breath caught. Sophie, her younger daughter, always polite, always gentle, but never a mediator, never the one to call out injustice. Linda stared at the name a moment before picking up. The voice on the call was tentative. Mom, I've been thinking about last night. I saw what happened with Claire. With you. Sophie paused, voice soft. And I wanted to say I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you. Linda's heart stuttered. She managed to say thank you. Sophie's reply was measured. Jerry and I have noticed how things fall on you. I didn't know how to say anything, but no more. I'm done looking away. She hesitated. Claire doesn't realize how she makes you feel. I never defended you. I regret that. Linda sank back, surprise and relief mixing. She recognized the tremor in her own voice. Sophie, Mom, Sophie interrupted gently. I'd like us to meet, just us, maybe figure out how the family moves forward, if it can. Linda considered. Part of her yearned for repair, another part held caution. Had yesterday built walls or revealed doors? She inhaled, answered softly. Okay. They agreed to meet the next afternoon at a quiet cafe, down the street from Linda's home. Linda's chest fluttered with something she hadn't felt in years. Genuine hope. Sunlight filtered through the cafe windows, dust motes dancing over the table where Sophie waited. She'd brought a small bouquet of rosemary, Linda's favorite. They greeted with a light embrace, careful and sincere. Sophie's eyes were earnest. Last night made me realize how much I avoided conflict. I didn't want to hurt Claire's feelings. But I see now it hurt you instead. Linda watched her daughter's expression shift from guilt to resolve. I always appreciated your kindness, Sophie. But this matters. If we don't shift now, nothing will. Sophie nodded. I want change, Mother. Claire apologized already. I heard her voice crack, and for the first time I think she sees you. Maybe we can start rebuilding without expecting too much too soon. Linda reached across the table, placing a hand over Sophie's. Thank you. That means more than you know. As they spoke of family gatherings, other siblings, how to rebuild respect, things Linda had planned in endless quiet nights, they mapped out small steps, acknowledging roles, rotating tasks, so roles wouldn't default back. Fair gratitude. Sophie listened. She spoke up. She planned. Linda marveled at how powerful nuance could feel. Shared language, contained but clear. Before leaving, Sophie dropped one more note. Claire asked me to say when we meet next, she'll apologize too. Linda exhaled. Doubt flickered. Gentle. Was this another performance? She said. I'd like that. They parted with a hug that felt alive, unhurried. Back at home, Linda paused at the window. The lavender plant quivered in the breeze. She felt protection dawn inside her. Soft but sure. Sophie's outreach had broken something fragile in the old pattern but felt like a gift in the new. She thought of Emily's strong presence last night, Mark's quiet support and a future where she belonged, not by serving but by being. Her phone chimed again. Thank you, Mom. Love you. Sophie's message carried warmth without expectation. Linda responded, thank you. She believed her daughter meant it. That evening, Linda sat reading by the kitchen window. The wind rustled leaves outside. In her mind, she replayed conversations, not aggressively, but with clarity. Was this reconciliation or reset? She didn't know, but she felt mobilized by responsibility for herself, not to restore the old order but to build something honest. Claire's apology might come. Maybe they'd reconnect slowly. But even if not, something had begun. She sipped tea and whispered to the quiet room. I have allies. I can choose peace, and I'll ask for respect next time. Linda placed her cup down with deliberate calm. She felt stronger and ready. The valley between yesterday and tomorrow had shifted. Now, the only question was how wide she'd let the new path stretch. This was the moment I needed. I wasn't sure if things could heal, but I was going to demand honest. Late afternoon sunlight filtered through lace curtains as Linda, Claire, and Sophie settled around the living room coffee table. Sophie sat beside Linda, offering quiet reassurance. Claire perched across from them, folding and unfolding her hands, posture neat, expression guarded. The air was thick with what had been wounded and what hung in the balance between them. Claire cleared her throat. "Mom, I'm sorry for last night. I didn't mean to." Her voice wavered, frail with uncertainty. "I've been so focused, making everything perfect. I didn't see how it hurt you." It felt like the apology everyone expected she'd give, but the delivery was soft, uneasy. Claire's gaze flickered to Sophie, as though seeking permission to retreat. Linda inhaled, steady. Her voice didn't waver. "Claire, thank you, but what you've been doing, requesting, orchestrating, delegating without asking, is not about perfection. It's about control. It's about erasure." Claire looked at her mother, blinked. "I thought I was helping. I never meant to make you feel invisible." "It wasn't about intentions," Linda said. "It was the result." She paused, letting the words settle. "I've spent years playing hostess, planner, peacemaker. When you asked me to clean after everyone last night in front of all of them, it wasn't casual. It was your pattern, and I let it happen." Claire's cheeks paled. She swallowed. Sophie leaned in. "Claire," she said softly, "you were asked not just once, but every event." Mom didn't feel honored. She felt used. Claire's eyes flicked to Sophie, confusion pinching her brows. "I didn't realize how much it felt like giving orders." Linda nodded. "Maybe you're still learning, but I can't be in this pattern anymore." Claire looked downward, voice quieter. "I've been overwhelmed, kids, work, expectations. I didn't see how much I was leaning on you." "But you could have asked," Linda replied. "You never asked. You just assumed again and again." Sophie cleared her throat. "Taking responsibility won't break you, Claire. Accountability might help us heal." Claire looked between them, her mother and her sister. She nodded slowly. "I want to change. I'm trying, but I don't know how." Linda watched her. In that moment, the anger softened, but the boundary remained firm. "Then let's teach each other how. I won't disappear behind your plan. I want to be part of them in my role, not just do the dishes after you take a bow." Claire's shoulders sagged. "I hear that." Her voice was genuine, but tentative. "I'm sorry, Mom." Sophie placed a reassuring hand on Linda's arm. "Thank you for doing this," she whispered. Linda offered a grateful smile. They sat in a hush in segments of breathing, of fragile possibility. The sunlight moved across the rug. Sophie finally spoke again. "Mom, I'm worried about Claire. She's trying, but she's stuck. Maybe scared. I don't know how to help her grow." Linda met her daughter's eyes. Understanding passed between them. Healing often demanded depth, not just apologies. "Then maybe what she needs is time," she said softly. "And maybe I need to keep my voice strong while she learns." Her gaze shifted to Claire. "I'll stay, but this is not the silence you come back to." Claire met her mother's eyes, a flicker of shame in her gaze. Sophie squeezed Linda's hand. "We'll figure this out," Linda added, but on new terms. The room remained quiet after Claire excused herself. She left with a nod, a fragile gesture shaped by accountability, not defeat. Sophie helped Linda gather empty cups. The weight between them had shifted. As evening light deepened outside, Linda and Sophie sat together. The moment felt tender and fragile and real. Sophie leaned forward, voice low. "Mom, I feel closer to you now. But what happens next?" Linda considered. "We wait. We watch. We stand firm." She touched Sophie's hand. "I won't shrink back. Neither will you." They stayed seated as dusk turned the room golden. Outside, the neighborhood settled into quiet. Inside, something unspoken moved. Cracks in old patterns, offering hope. Linda realized that nothing forced perfect change tonight, but a new commitment had begun. And as she held Sophie's hand, Linda understood that healing might not be simple, but it could grow. "The more I tried to heal, the more I saw the divide grow. Could this ever be fixed? Or was it too late?" Late afternoon sunlight filtered through lace curtains, into Linda's living room. She sat with Emily, clutching a warm cup of tea. Emily's presence felt steady. "I stand with you," she whispered, offering quiet reassurance. Linda nodded, letting the solidarity settle inside. Over the weeks that followed, family gatherings felt like navigating a minefield. At Rachel's casual lunch, Claire hovered on the margins, polite, distant, with smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Conversation ebbed and flowed, but wounds remained unspoken. The fault line between mother and daughter pulsed underneath every forced laugh. Emily hovered nearby. After a cousin asked how Linda was doing, she leaned in. "Stay steady," she murmured. But staying steady felt heavier now. Claire reached out in fits and starts, texts, hesitant calls, invitations, but canceled them at the last minute. Invisible walls remained. Defensive habits resurfaced. Linda realized that some wounds didn't heal with apologies alone. Except Sophie, she remained close, a consistent anchor. One afternoon at a local park, she turned to her mother. "I wish I could fix this," she said, voice layered with regret and hope. "Sometimes I wonder if I traded peace for silence, and now we're paying for it." Linda squeezed Sophie's hand. "What matters now is how we show up." At a weekend potluck hosted by Claire and Tom, the divide echoed again. Claire's gaze avoided Linda's passing smile. Rachel shot her sister wary looks. Tom subtly placed a hand on Linda's shoulder, a silent gesture of solidarity, but Claire tensed, retreating behind rigid composure. Between events, Sophie confided something that shifted Linda's perspective. Claire had been facing serious financial pressure, credit cards, debts, and shame she carried alone. The realization didn't excuse Claire's behavior, but explained it. Hidden insecurity had fueled her control. That evening, Linda and Emily sat on the porch. The lavender plant rustled in the breeze. Emily broke the silence gently. "Understanding doesn't erase what happened, but it clarifies." Linda breathed, tasting both grief and relief. She understood that compassion didn't mean collapse. She could hold space without being swallowed. In the following days, Linda moved with quiet intention. She politely declined invitations to Claire's gatherings. Instead, she spent time with Emily and Sophie. She resumed pottery classes at the studio, rejoined the women's book group, and journaled about reclaiming her voice. Claire reached out again, this time with a video call. Her voice sounded fragile. "Mom, I'm sorry I haven't handled things well." Linda didn't reply immediately. The call hung between them. Sophie later messaged, "She asked me to reach out. I'm worried, but she's still keeping me at arm's length." Linda paused over the message. Empathy arose, tailored with resolve. She wrote back, "I hear you." At a small neighborhood gathering that followed, Linda stood firm among the assembled family. Claire approached, but paused, and sat out of Linda's sight. They spoke only briefly, courteous but distant. Feeling that tension was painful, but Linda remained composed. That evening, as dusk deepened, Linda and Emily walked home together. Cicadas rattled overhead. Emily asked, "Do you think things can really change?" Linda inhaled the cool air. She thought of lavender, persistent and rooted. "Maybe not how we once imagined, but boundaries can be bridges, if they're mutual." Emily nodded, thoughtful. At her doorstep, Linda's phone buzzed. A text from Claire, "Thanks for coming today, I'm trying." Linda paused, felt something shift. She typed, "Thank you." She closed her eyes under the porch light. The divide had grown, but so had her strength. And now the only question left was, could she allow healing without sacrificing herself? Strength whispered in the quiet air. The distance was real, but so was the possibility. Linda decided she would protect her peace and watch what grew from space and honesty. "Every time I tried to give, I felt like I was getting further away, but today, I knew it was time for one last conversation." Linda sat on the park bench, beneath an old oak, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across her lap. Claire arrived, calm but tentative, nerves rippling beneath her composed facade. Sophie trailed behind, offering quiet support but not overbearing presence. The air between them hummed with years of unspoken pain. "I asked you to meet," Linda began, voice steady, "not to rehash the past, but to be honest." Claire nodded, shifting her weight. I know, she said softly. I'm ready. Linda inhaled. She said, I love you, but I'm tired of shrinking, for events, for compliments you need, for a narrative you control. Her voice wavered, but found strength. I need to know if you can accept me, my choices, my limits, without editing me. Tears appeared. Claire lowered her eye. I never meant to push you away, she whispered. I controlled everything, not because I'm powerful, but because I was scared that if I didn't orchestrate the family, someone else would. Sophie watched quietly. Claire looked up, voice cracking. I thought order protected us, but it destroyed us instead. You were my anchor, but I treated you like background. Her shoulders shook. The admission spilled free. I'm sorry for last night, but for all the times I made you invisible. Linda's heart pounded. She'd been waiting decades for this moment. The soft collapse of Claire's armor, yet part of her braced for more pain underneath. Sophie spoke then, gently. You can't ask her to fix everything tonight, Claire. Just start. Claire inhaled. She turned to Linda. I want to, but I know saying it doesn't undo it. She paused. I'm afraid, but not ready to lose the only way I've known to manage fear. Linda reached out, brushing Claire's cheek. You don't have to manage me, she said softly. You just need to trust that I'm here full. Claire nodded, wiping tears. I want to learn how, maybe with help. Linda exhaled. She felt the weight lift off her shoulders, the burden of silence. Claire's confession had cracked the glass ceiling between them, but the room remained fragile. Lounging on her other side, Sophie asked, would it help if we set new ground rules, roles, responsibilities, mutual respect? Yes, Claire answered. She sounded small but resolute. Let's do that. Linda nodded. She said, I don't want old patterns to rise again. I want shared space without expectation. They sat for a long moment, sunlight softening around them. Claire reached for Linda's hand. Thank you for saying what you said, she said. I had to hear it. Linda replied, quieter. Thank you for listening. But in the stillness, Linda realized something bittersweet. This conversation, honest and difficult, had changed everything, and made the past come undone. Claire exhaled, and stood. I need time, she said. I'll work on it. Linda watched as Claire turned, walked away with Sophie trailing behind. Claire looked back only once, a glance full of apology, hope and uncertainty. Sophie stood beside Linda. That felt real, she said softly, but also raw. Linda inhaled deeply. Yes, love and loss coexisted. Possibility and uncertainty walked hand in hand. As they rose to leave, Claire paused before disappearing into the distance. Neither looked back again. Linda felt her pulse quicken, not from anger or regret, but from fragile relief. She wondered, were bridges being rebuilt, or were they veering into entirely new terrain? Could love survive change, or was she standing at the edge of something carefully unmade? She let the question settle. With each step toward home, she knew, healing wouldn't be perfect, but it would be hers. I've said what I needed to say, now it's time to focus on me. The morning light through lace curtains found Linda adjusting her scarf in the full-length mirror. A weight had lifted inside her, but she felt rooted in a new certainty, not fear, not duty, something firm and quietly hopeful. Back home, she hung a lightweight coat on the rack and stepped into her favorite denim blouse. The mirror didn't reflect guilt anymore. It reflected someone standing upright for herself. The day began gently. She poured tea in her favorite cup, inhaled its warmth, and settled at the kitchen table with her journal. Under her pen, she wrote new plans: a book group meeting, a pottery class reunion, a weekend trip to a nearby coastal town, not because she was expected to, but because she chose them. Emily's friend request pinged again. Thanks for reaching out about mentoring. Are you interested? Linda paused over the message, then typed, yes. I would like that. She felt a small thrill possibility unfolding, unclaimed, until now. By mid-morning, she laced her sneakers and walked to the botanical garden path. Lavender blooms wafted in the air, echoing the quiet strength she'd cultivated. She remembered the tension of last summer's reunion, the confrontation, the quiet battles, and she realized how much space she'd reclaimed in the years since. Later, she met Sophie for lunch beneath a willow tree in the small park cafe. Sophie's smile was easy now, no need to shield grief or hesitation. They spoke of gratitude. Sophie mentioned Claire's tentative emails and text check-ins, but Linda let them rest. She said, "When or if that bridge feels right, I'll cross it." Sophie nodded, tears glistening, and hugged her mother gently. That afternoon, Linda joined her pottery class. The wheel spun under her palms as she shaped clay, fingers firm and focused. Her instructor praised her work, balanced, expressive. Under the wheel, under her life, she felt centered again. Not because she'd healed everything, but because she was making something of her own design. The evening brought text from old friends, a rehearsal invitation for the local choir, an art exhibit opening. Linda replied thoughtfully, committing to attend. She realized she was rediscovering herself beyond family obligations, connecting to people who saw her as fully present, not as caretaker. At home, she spread bowls of fresh fruit on a small table and lit a candle. She sat beside the lavender plant she'd nurtured, its slender stalk taller than last year. She touched its leaves, savoring the faint aroma. It was a quiet companion, persistent and growing. Like her, Claire reached out again that evening. A message marked urgent. Linda looked at it, then set her phone aside. She exhaled, feeling neither rush nor regret. The lines were drawn, but she didn't retreat. She understood that honoring boundaries didn't mean closing doors. It meant pacing herself. Emily arrived with a small gift, a handmade scarf, lavender-colored. She smiled. "I'm proud of you." Linda hugged her, voice soft, "So am I." Together, they prepared simple snacks and chatted about the weekend's plans. The night was quiet. Linda sipped tea and opened her journal again. She wrote, "I'm not living for anyone else's approval. I'm living for truth, for peace, for choice." Something shifted. Claire didn't call again. That was fine. Linda's relief surprised her, but not regret. She felt whole enough. Her happiness no longer hinged on someone else's apology or insight. A calendar alert popped. Family reunion next month. Claire's address. Linda stared at it. She closed the pop-up calmly. The invitation remained on her calendar, not deleted, but not decided. She stood by the window, watching streetlights bloom in the dusk. The lavender plant glowed faintly in the room's soft light. She measured the silence, not heavy, but spacious. Linda whispered into the dim, "This life is mine." She felt it in her bones. She smiled firm and steady, and stepped away from the window into the rest of her unfolding day. And now, the only question left was not whether to attend, but how she would step into every moment, choosing her own terms. At the edge of her living room, Linda paused. The path ahead was unknown, but she knew one thing for certain. She would walk it on her own strength. Moving forward doesn't mean forgetting. It means living in the present and embracing the future. Linda walked into the family gathering under dappled sunlight through apple blossoms. The same backyard felt different. Light, she wore calm confidence in her posture, boundaries as soft armor. Claire met her at the gate, hesitant. "Hi, Mom. Thank you for coming." Linda offered a steady nod. "Thank you," she replied without collapsing. Claire passed her a plate. "I've got it," she said. Linda accepted a salad. Neither rushed. Respect hummed between them. Children dashed past, laughter and chatter floating in warm air. Linda talked easily with nieces about their new jobs, joked with nephews. No one expected her to host or disappear. Emily handed Linda iced tea. Their eyes met. Emily didn't need words. Solidarity settled between them. Linda returned a subtle smile. Recognition without drama. Later, Linda chatted with cousin Marisol by the oak tree. "I'm proud of what you've built," Marisol said softly. Linda bowed slightly. It wasn't pity, only shared acknowledgement. Sophie guided little ones over to their grandmother. Beside her, she said, "They wanted to show you the garden." Together they wandered among blooms. Linda smelled lavender blossoms as if inhaling renewal. Claire approached again. "Mom, thank you for being here." Her voice was quiet, respectful. Linda replied, "I see that." Claire smiled softly, then moved on. During cleanup, Tom offered Linda a plate. She paused, accepting it. When Claire offered to walk her to the car, Linda said, "I'd like that." They walked side by side, not childhood closeness, but peace born of boundaries. Goodbyes followed. Linda hugged Sophie, Emily, Rachel, Marisol, all without needing duty as cover. Each gesture felt mutual and deserved. Later in the car home, she felt settled, a promise and a question, humming beneath calm. Evening light streamed through vents. Songs played softly. She drove slowly westward, Arriving home, Linda lit a lavender candle near the plant on her sill. She checked her notebook, filled with upcoming mentorship sessions, workshop plans, writing goals. Her world was full and chosen. Claire texted, "Thanks for coming today. Means a lot." Linda waited, then typed, "You're welcome. No guilt. No long." She brewed tea and compiled tomorrow's tasks. Weekend retreat, pottery class, elder declutter workshop. She paused at a line, outline guidebook draft. Her hand moved easily, confidently. That evening, June called about lake painting plans. Linda said, "Yes, let's do it." She smiled mid-sentence, feeling presence swell in her chest. A knock sounded. Emily entered with a lavender scarf, draping it across Linda's shoulders. "I see you," she said gently. Linda's breath caught. They hugged. "Thank you," she whispered. Later, she sat by candlelight, sipping tea, journal open, lavender scent around her. No hubbub, no expectations. She realized this life wasn't tethered to her past anymore. It was hers. She closed her journal. A notification pinged. Family reunion invitation. Claire's address. Next month. Linda paused. Let the invitation remain on screen, but unanswered. Linda stood by her window, lights glowing outside. She breathed in scented air. Thought, this life is mine. She smiled with soft assurance. She stepped away into her present, unused scripts left behind. Linda stood at the edge of everything she was building, quiet strength pulsing within. Now the only question is not whether to attend, but how she will enter this next chapter on her own terms. "I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving, and this is just the beginning." Morning sunlight filtered in as Linda opened her laptop. Client messages, workshop plans, flight itineraries. Her life had shifted. Her elder decluttering consultancy was now in full swing, and she'd just been invited to speak at a regional symposium on aging with purpose. She sipped her tea, steady and bright. By late morning, she led a session at the Botanical Garden, memory-based decor for seniors eager to reclaim their spaces. Women sorted photographs, curated mementos, and spoke softly about letting go. Their gratitude felt real, not routine. One whispered, "You helped me see home again." Linda's chest swelled, not from past obligations, but present meaning. That afternoon, Sophie arrived with iced tea and homemade quiche. They sat under the willow tree in the park cafe, surrounded by renovated garden beds. Sophie's voice was soft but clear. "You're showing us all how to live." Linda realized that Sophie's presence grounded her, not out of duty, but in alliance. At home, an unread message glowed on Linda's phone from Claire. "Let me know when you're ready to talk." Linda paused, then set the phone aside. She felt calm. Boundaries didn't feel heavy anymore. Dusk settled as lavender on her windowsill, brushed by a gentle breeze. Emily called. They sat side by side. No words needed at first. Emily finally said, "You've grown into you." Linda replied, "I'm finally standing on my own." They hugged, light and full of recognition. Later, a video call with a nonprofit board arrived. Linda spoke confidently about her new guidebook and upcoming retreats. She shared her story with clarity and passion. Messages lit up on screen. Encouragement, respect, shared vision. She felt seen. By evening, her calendar showed client inquiries, retreat dates set, mentorship requests overflowing. She journaled, "Boundaries are respect, not rejection." An email invitation for the next family reunion arrived. Claire's home address, date and time. Linda opened it slowly, then closed it without deleting. It remained on her screen, an unresolved invitation, not a burden. Later that night, a letter arrived from an art retreat in Provence, a chance for elderly writers. Linda tucked it beside her journal. Possibility glowed in its envelope. A call from her pottery teacher offered a collaboration, elder art workshops, paired with memory organizing. She accepted. Her heart stirred, not an obligation, but forward motion. Emily brought sandwiches and laughter. They joked about Linda's latest client unpacking decades-old letters. "You give life to the forgotten," Emily said. Linda smiled, this time with intention, not reflection. Later, June phoned to finalize lake painting plans. Linda answered enthusiastically, "Absolutely. Let's go." For the first time, yes felt joyful, not deferential. That evening, Linda lit a lavender candle by the plant on her sill. She reread a phrase in her journal, "I'm not afraid anymore." Its certainty warmed her. the economy, the retreats, the guidebook, they were all echoes of her own resolve. She placed the invitation to the gathering beside her notebook, an unanswered question, not a demand. She stepped to the window, streetlights flickered, the neighborhood pulsed gently. She imagined autumn workshops, the book draft, new connections waiting. Her phone chimed again. Another message from Claire. Linda smiled softly. She didn't rush to respond. She didn't need to. Instead, she whispered into the lavender-scented air, "This is only the beginning." Her past no longer scripted her tomorrow. She did, with calm resolve and soft affirmation. Linda closed her journal, stood tall and stepped fully into the life she had claimed. Through all the pain, the anger, and the healing, I've finally found peace, and it's mine to keep. Morning light drifted across the lavender plant. As Linda opened her journal, she read a phrase she'd written months ago. "I'm not afraid anymore." Beneath it, she noted her path from staying silent to carving boundaries, to reimagining home. She closed the book softly. It was her testimony. Mid-morning, she and Emily walked through the garden paths of the Botanical Center, discussing how the spring workshops had been a success. The scent of lavender and budding roses felt like affirmation. Emily shared that feedback had led to a second retreat being planned. Linda smiled. Her voice had come full circle. At lunch with Sophie under the willow tree, they reminisced. "You're so rooted now," Sophie said. "Claire keeps saying she's changing, and I see it in how she speaks, not how she used to." Linda nodded. She saw it too. Claire's steps were slower now, measured, no longer rushing ahead. Later, Linda found herself typing a note to friends of elder empowerment, accepting a guest speaker slot in autumn. She paused. Public speaking once terrified her. Now it felt right. She typed, "Yes, I'd be honored." In the afternoon, her phone chimed. It was an email. Claire read by Sophie. Subject: "Mom, I've grown trying to rebuild." Linda opened it with calm. Not hope, but readiness. Claire admitted she had begun therapy, changed how she managed her business, and had enrolled in a boundary workshop herself. She offered to host next year's reunion, but only if Linda agreed on mutual terms. No assumptions, no default cleanup. Linda closed the message gently and gazed out the window at the lavender plant's delicate blooms. Claire's words felt like the shift they might become, not guaranteed, but real. That evening, she hosted a small gathering in her home. Sophie, Emily, a trusted neighbor she mentored, and 2 women from her new consultant network. They swapped stories over homemade quiche and herbal tea. Laughter pulsed effortlessly. The small apartment glowed alive with connection. Linda listened, shared, guided, and savored being fully seen, not defined by someone else's needs. Emily raised her cup. "To new chapters and to you," she said. Linda's eyes brimmed with gratitude. When the guests left, Linda lingered by the window, candle flickering beside the lavender. She revisited the journal once more, flipping to the first entries: guilt, apology, regret, then the later ones: boundary, alignment, peace. She closed to the final blank page, ready to fill it with new dreams. A notification blinked, an invitation to judge a local elder art storytelling contest. Linda accepted. She surmised that now others wanted her voice to carry their stories. Her own journey echoed in the margins, reclaiming dignity through memory, space, and care. She sat by the sill, smelling lavender, breathing calm. She reflected. Forgiveness hadn't erased pain, but set her free to create something better. That night, as dusk draped the living area, Linda's phone vibrated again, this time a video message. Claire. The screen lit with her daughter's face, softer and steadier than months ago. Claire spoke. "Mom, I wanted you to hear from me first. I've started seeing a counselor, and pulled back from control. I am proud of the woman I see you become. If you'd like to meet as equals, when you're ready, I'd be grateful." Linda paused, letting the message resonate. She felt emotion, not longing, but cautious care. She didn't respond immediately. She sat quietly, pressing her palm to the glass beside flowers drifting in the evening breeze. She stood and looked into the night sky beyond her window, stars barely visible but steady. She whispered inwardly, "I've come full circle, and now I'm finally living the life I've always deserved." There was no rush now, just space and the promise that the best was yet to come. And in that quiet moment, Linda realized the horizon was hers to fill. The future is full of possibilities, and this time, I'm living it for me. The sun slanted through the window, warming Linda's face as she looked over a page in her journal titled Future Dreams. Beneath it were scattered ideas: writing a memoir of elders she's helped, a watercolor weekend retreat, launching a podcast about boundaries and dignity. She closed the journal with a quiet certainty. This life was hers to design. By mid-morning she was drafting an email. She'd accepted an invitation to speak at a women's empowerment forum next month. It wasn't a routine gig anymore. It was a platform she genuinely valued. When her phone dinged, it was Claire again. Rather than open it, Linda paused and placed the device beside a small lavender bouquet she'd just placed on the windowsill. Later, Linda led her memory decor workshop in the garden center, surrounded by framed photographs and soft chat. Women sorted keepsakes, shared stories of their lost siblings or late husbands, tentatively releasing inherited items. One participant leaned toward Linda and said, "You taught me compassion through this work." Linda blinked back tears of quiet pride. That afternoon, Sophie came over with 2 cups of tea, summer fruit blossom and chamomile. They settled on the balcony, sunlight casting patterns over their hands. "I feel like things are finally shifting," Sophie said. "Claire's reaching out differently, and you're radiant." Linda smiled, sipping. "I'm opening new doors for all of us," she replied. It felt true. That evening, Emily arrived with a small gathering of women from the mentoring group. They swapped notes and plans over homemade keys. Emily raised a toast to Linda, who's shown us what it means to draw a line and keep loving through it. Linda's chest warmed as applause rippled across the room, not for being a mother or caretaker, but for her voice. After everyone left, Linda lingered in her living room, lavender candle flickering beside her plant. She reread Claire's message again, hesitating on the words, "If you'd like to meet as equals, when you're ready." A soft smile touched her lips. It was a gentle invitation, not an obligation. She closed her eyes, inhaled the lavender aroma, and felt boundary and kindness fuse, forgiving without collapsing, caring without control, respect without erasure. The next morning, Linda packed a small suitcase. Inside her notebook, watercolor set, favorite scarf. She had booked a solo trip to a lakeside retreat, where she would teach a session in memory decor and take painting classes along the shore. The idea thrilled and unsettled her in the best way. It was an act of faith in herself. Claire's text didn't come for the first time. Linda didn't. When the phone remained still, she felt relief rather than longing. At the kitchen table, she opened her journal and wrote, "I'm not living for someone else's comfort. I'm thriving because I chose me." Beneath that, she sketched a lavender sprig, its slender stem growing upward. Leaves reached. Emily stopped by with a bag, inside a lavender-colored scarf and travel journal. "For the road ahead," Emily said softly. They hugged, a simple hold of love that didn't carry expectations. As dusk fell, Linda packed her pillow and photo album. The lavender plant quivered in the last breeze of evening. She lit a candle and whispered to the quiet room, "Here's to the life I've earned." Her suitcase zipped closed. The invitations and obligations rested quietly beside it, unanswered for now. Ahead lay possibility, strength born of boundaries, and the soft promise that the best adventures were still unfolding. "I've done the work, faced the challenges, and now I'm living the life I've always wanted." Sunlight warmed Linda's face as she zipped her suitcase shut. Inside her journal, a watercolor kit, favorite notebook. She paused, pressing her palm to the lavender plant on her windowsill. Its stalk, taller now, blooms steady. It reminded her of how far she'd grown. This morning, messages lit her inbox, requests for mentoring calls, speaking invitations, even a request to judge a local memory story contest. Instead of feeling pressured, she felt empowered. She sorted the invitations thoughtfully. Some accepted, some set aside. Each decision rooted in choice, not expectation. She rose and poured tea in her favorite cup, inhaling the warmth. A breeze rattled the lavender. She paused, whispering, "I'm not living anyone's version of my life anymore." Later she walked through the botanical garden, sunlight filtering through magnolia petals, bees buzzing over blooms. The memory decor retreat she'd led here felt distant now, yet foundational. Women had departed, transformed just like she had. One of them had hugged her and whispered, "You gave me space to remember." Linda felt that victory again. At the small cafe beneath the willow, Sophie waited with 2 cups of iced tea. She smiled warmly. "You seem lighter than ever," Sophie said. "And braver." Linda chuckled softly. "Because I finally choose me." Their conversation turned to dreams, a solo retreat in the mountains, a guidebook draft. Sophie offered help, editing feedback, company if needed. Linda appreciated the offer but shook her head. This time, I stepped forward on my own. That evening, Emily arrived with a bouquet of lavender-colored tulips and a travel journal inside a canvas bag. For the next step, Emily said softly. Linda hugged her, tears almost slipping. In the kindness and support of these women, she felt chosen, not used. After dinner, she sat by her candle-lit window and opened Claire's latest message. I'm proud of the woman you've become. If you're ready to reconnect as equals. Linda exhaled. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she closed the window, letting the scent drift inside, a symbol of continuity and renewal. She picked up her journal and wrote a final entry. Today I claim everything I lost, and everything I choose. Beneath it she sketched a lavender stems, arching upward, steady and hopeful. Sometime later a soft knock sounded. It was Emily, back for one last hug before our morning trip. I can't wait to hear what you create, she said. Linda smiled. Neither can I. They stood quietly, letting the evening settle. At bedtime she packed her essentials for the lakeside retreat: journal, sketchbook, guidebook outline. She imagined painting watercolors by a mountain lake, teaching workshops among strangers who needed space and order as much as she once did. Her phone remained dark, no urgent messaging, no unresolved guilt, only quiet presence. As she slid into bed, Linda looked over at the lavender in its pot leaves. Reaching toward the dusk, she thought, I am resilient, I am calm, I am free. And now, with suitcase closed and dawn ahead, she felt curiosity more than fear. She'd left behind old dynamics, expectations, and long silent traditions. What lay ahead was hers, uncharted and unfolding. The horizon glowed softly beyond her window. Linda whispered, this is only the beginning.